But let's talk a little bit. You mentioned gamification, and that's a term I see thrown around a lot. And that's part of the new research that's coming out, isn't it, on how people learn? Can you talk a little bit about that when you say you've implemented some gamification in your training? What does that look like?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So I think one of the things that when you look at gamification, it tends to be, oh, it's points and badges and leaderboards. And that's really not what gamification is. That's a way that you can it's an external way that you can show progress in whatever they're doing with gamification, and that is a piece of it. But I think the big overarching way that we look at gamification is what makes games interesting, what makes games fun, what makes games engaging, and how can we translate those skills to help people learn in the same engaging manner. And so it is a matter of what are some of the things that we see a lot in games. Games are colorful, games are dynamic, games have a generally, if for the most part, a basic tutorial at the very, very beginning of it. So you learn the basic navigation, so you have to try to figure that part out. Games also have a story that goes through it. I think a very underutilized aspect of gamification is the digital storytelling aspect. And so I try to integrate a lot of that in with the course that I design. It's like I'm not just you're learning A, then learning B, then learning C. We're telling a story that leads that goes all the way through.
So give me an example of that. When you talk about digital storytelling, what? Give me an example of how you implemented that or put that together in one of the classes.
Oh, sure. I'll give you an example for one of our courses. It's called Resolving Workplace Conflict. That's a really great example of it. And so the way that it starts off is the story starts off between a leader having to manage a conflict between two employees.
Hmm.
That's how we're starting. And throughout the course, throughout the web-based training portion, you see what has happened. Why we talk about, okay, there's a conflict, then we discussed, well, why did this conflict happen, how did this conflict happen, how did it get worse, what happened next, and then
Mm,
we continue with
mm.
the storyline. And then as we get farther along, then there's actually an interactive piece that's built into it where it's a choose your own adventure. So you act as one of the people that's in the conversation, and you act as the leader, and you're going to be talking to both of the people, and you have to choose which is the best response to elicit the right thought process, so those two people
Interesting.
can manage and resolve their conflict between them. So
Hmm.
it's a whole story. It starts at with the conflict, and then at the end of that course is you've resolved that conflict that they were involved in.
That's an excellent way to put it together. And the training is kind of painless at that point. It's they get
Yeah.
caught up more in the storytelling and the resolution than the actual. It's not so dry,
Yeah,
right?
and it's not you're not just watching a story unfold
Hmm.
because of the interactive pieces that we have built into the course. They're involved with that resolution and how to get it resolved the right way.
Yeah.
So that just further builds that engagement with the learner, gets that really higher level of understanding of the content.
By the way, excellent class. One of the things that I do, I am retired, but one of the things that I do, I'm a volunteer conflict coach and mediator
Oh,
in the
nice.
community. And so resolving conflict in the workplace I think it would save us billions of dollars.
Oh, very
I'm,
much so. Very
I'm
much
glad
so.